Hi and welcome to the Archive of History. Imagine a city rising from the jungle canopy, its limestone pyramids catching the first gold light of dawn. The air is thick and warm, alive with the calls of howler monkeys and the rustle of 1,000 unseen creatures. Mist clings to the forest floor, and somewhere in the distance, a drum begins to beat. This is not a myth or a fantasy. This was real. For over 2,000 years across the rainforests and highlands of what we now call Mexico, Guatemala, Belize and Honduras, a civilization flourished that would map the movements of Venus with stunning accuracy, invent the concept of zero independently, and build cities of stone that still stand today, wrapped in the embrace of the jungle that tried to reclaim them. This is the story of the Maya, not in their collapse but in their glory. Tonight we will walk through their cities as they lived. We will stand in their plazas at dawn, enter their temples at dusk and understand the world as they understood it. Before we drift off, I am always curious to know where my listeners are tuning in from and what time it is that they are listening tonight. Let me know in the comments. And now, settle in. Let the noise of the modern world fade away and let us journey back to a time of towering pyramids, sacred calendars, and a people who read the cosmos in the patterns of the stars. The sky above the city is still dark, but the darkness is beginning to thin. You stand at the edge of a great plaza, your feet on limestone pavement that has been swept clean by attendants who rose before you. The air is not yet hot, but you can feel the promise of heat in the humidity that wraps around you like a living thing. Around you, the jungle presses close. But here in this ceremonial heart, humanity has carved out space and filled it with meaning. The plaza stretches before you, vast and empty in the pre-dawn stillness. At its far end, a pyramid rises, steep and imposing, its sides climbing in a series of massive stone terraces toward a temple at its summit. Even in the dim light you can see the elaborate carvings that cover its facade, the faces of gods and kings rendered in stone, their features both human and divine. The pyramid is painted, though you cannot see the colors yet. Red and white and blue, colors made from minerals ground fine and mixed with tree sap. Colors that will blaze in the sunlight, but now are only suggestions in the darkness. You hear the sound before you see its source. A conch-shell trumpet, low and resonant, echoing across the plaza and into the forest beyond. It is answered by another, and then another, a cascade of sound that signals the approach of dawn and the beginning of the sacred day. You are not alone now. From the shadows at the edges of the plaza, figures begin to emerge. They move with purpose, their footsteps soft on the stone. Some carry bundles of copal incense, others bear ceramic vessels painted with intricate designs. These are the priests and their attendants, the ones who keep the calendar and speak to the gods on behalf of the city and its people. The first priest to reach the pyramid's base is an older man, his hair long and matted with the dried blood of his own offerings. He wears a simple cotton mantle, but around his neck hangs a collar of jade beads, each one polished to a soft green glow. He does not climb the pyramid's front stairs, not yet. Instead he kneels, and from a small clay brazier carried by a boy behind him, he takes a handful of copal resin. The resin is hard and amber-colored, sticky to the touch. He places it in a shallow stone bowl set into the plaza floor, and touches a burning stick to it. The copal catches slowly, releasing a thick white smoke that rises in a column, sweet and pungent. This is the breath of the gods, the smoke that carries prayers upward to the sky. Now the sky is changing. The black is becoming deep blue, and at the eastern horizon, where the jungle meets the sky, a line of pale gold is beginning to spread. The priests begin their ascent. They climb slowly, deliberately, each step a prayer. There are many steps, perhaps 100 or more, and they are steep. This is not a stairway made for ease. It is made for ritual, for the long, arduous climb that mirrors the sun's own daily journey from the underworld to the sky. You watch them climb, their white mantles catching the growing light, their shadows long behind them on the stone. By the time they reach the temple at the pyramid's summit, the sun is very close to rising. The temple itself is small, surprisingly so, given the massive structure that supports it. It has 3 doorways, each one framed by carved stone serpents, their mouths open, their fangs bared. Inside you cannot see, but you know what is there. An altar stone, darkened by centuries of offerings. Ceramic incense burners shaped like gods, their features grotesque and beautiful at once. And perhaps a wooden bench, its surface carved with the history of kings, each glyph a record of births and deaths and battles won. The moment comes. The sun, enormous and red, lifts itself free of the jungle's edge. Light floods the plaza, turning the pale stone gold, illuminating the carvings on the pyramid so that they seem to move, to breathe. The priest at the temple's entrance raises his arms, and his voice, though you cannot hear the words from where you stand, carries across the space. He is greeting the sun, thanking it for returning, begging it to continue its journey across the sky. This is not metaphor to him. The sun is Kinichaja, the great lord of day, and without the prayers and offerings of humanity, it might not rise at all. The cosmos is not automatic. It requires maintenance, requires devotion. Every dawn is a victory, a renewal of the contract between gods and people. Around you now, the city is waking. The plaza, which moments ago was empty save for the priests, begins to fill. People emerge from the residential compounds that cluster around the ceremonial center, walking in small groups, talking quietly. They do not look at the pyramid with wonder. This is their city, and they have seen this dawn ritual 1,000 times. But they are present, and their presence matters. The city is not just buildings. It is the people who give it life, who move through its streets and plazas, who make offerings at its shrines, who carry its history in their memories and pass it to their children. You notice the variety among them. Some are clearly of high status, their clothing finer, their jewelry more elaborate. A woman passes close to you, and you see that her teeth have been filed to points and inlaid with small jade stones that catch the light when she smiles at a companion. Her forehead slopes back sharply from her eyebrows, a sign that as an infant, her head was bound between boards, shaped deliberately into this form that the Maya consider beautiful, a mark of nobility and civilization. She wears a hupil, a long tunic woven from cotton and dyed a deep red, the color of the east, the color of dawn. The weaving is so fine you can barely see the individual threads, and along its hem and neckline, patterns repeat, geometric and intricate, each one carrying meaning. The clouds, the water, the maize, the stories of the world rendered in thread. But not everyone is dressed so finely. Most of the people gathering in the plaza wear simpler clothes, undyed cotton or rough maguey fiber. The men wear loincloths and simple capes. The women wear plainer hupils and skirts. They carry baskets and bundles. Some have come to make offerings at the smaller shrines that dot the plaza's edges. Others have come because this is the day of market, and soon the vendors will arrive with their goods spread on woven mats, ready for trade. The social order is visible here, written on bodies and in cloth, but it is not rigid in the way you might expect. A farmer who has offered exceptional service to the city might wear jade. A nobleman fallen from favor might dress simply. Status is performance, is negotiation, is something that must be maintained through action and offering, and the complex web of obligation that binds this community together. The sun is higher now, and the heat is building. The priests descend from the pyramid, their morning ritual complete. They disperse to their own compounds, to their own work of keeping the calendar, recording the movements of celestial bodies, interpreting the patterns they see in the sky, and relating them to events on earth. One remains at the pyramid's base, an older woman this time, her gray hair bound up with leather cords. She oversees the placement of offerings. People approach her one by one, handing over small bundles, tamales wrapped in leaves, ceramic bowls filled with cacao, strings of shell beads. A farmer offers a portion of his harvest, dried maize kernels in a woven bag. She accepts each offering with a nod, placing them carefully on a stone altar that sits at the pyramid's base. These offerings will later be distributed, some burned as gifts to the gods, some given to the priests and temple attendants as payment for their service, some stored in the city's warehouses against times of need. You walk away from the plaza now, following a broad causeway that leads between smaller pyramids and palace complexes. The causeway is raised, built up with stone and plastered smooth. It connects different parts of the city, allowing movement above the level of the forest floor, above the potential for flooding during the rainy season. On either side, the jungle has been cut back, but not entirely. The Maya do not seek to eliminate the forest. They manage it, shape it, use it. You pass beneath the shade of ramon trees, their branches heavy with nuts that will be harvested and ground into flour. You pass cacao trees, small and delicate, growing in the shade of larger trees exactly as they prefer, their pods hanging directly from their trunks, waxy and colorful. The causeway opens into another plaza, smaller than the first, more intimate. Here the buildings are lower, their functions more practical. You see what must be an administrative complex, scribes visible through doorways bent over their work. You see a sweat bath, its small doorway releasing a curl of steam into the morning air, and you see residential compounds, the homes of the city's elite families, each one a small world unto itself, enclosed by walls and centered around private courtyards. You approach one of these compounds. Its entrance is guarded not by soldiers but by its architecture, a narrow doorway in a high wall that forces you to enter one at a time to be seen and acknowledged. You step through. Inside, the world changes. The noise of the plaza fades. You are in a courtyard, open to the sky, its floor paved with small stones set in intricate patterns. In the center, a small pool catches rainwater, its surface perfectly still, reflecting the clouds above. Around the courtyard, several buildings face inward. Their walls are painted with murals, though the paint is faded now, worn by sun and rain. You can still make out figures, human and divine, engaged in acts you don't fully understand. A ball game, a battle, a ritual offering. The murals tell stories, record histories, assert the family's place in the cosmic and social order. From one of the buildings, a sound, the rhythmic scrape of stone on stone. You approach and see, through an open doorway, a woman kneeling beside a low stone. She is grinding maize. The maize has been soaked overnight in water mixed with lime, a process that softens it and releases nutrients that would otherwise be locked away. Now she grinds it, pressing down with a smooth stone roller, working it back and forth across the larger stone beneath. The motion is hypnotic, steady. She has done this since she was a girl, and her hands move with the certainty of long practice. The ground maize becomes a paste, a dough. This is the foundation of every meal, every offering. Maize is not just food, it is sacred. According to the stories told by the priests, humanity itself was made from maize dough by the gods, shaped and given life. To eat maize is to consume the divine substance of creation. The woman looks up as you pass, her expression neither welcoming nor hostile, simply aware. She wears a simple hoopeel, but around her wrists are jade bracelets, and her ears have been pierced multiple times, adorned with obsidian ornaments that catch the light. She is working, but she is not a servant. This is the wife or daughter of the compound's lord, and her work is ritual as much as practical. The preparation of food is sacred work, women's work, the transformation of the god's gift into sustenance. Beyond the courtyard, in the largest of the buildings, you glimpse another scene. A man sits on a low bench, a jaguar pelt draped beneath him. Before him, several younger men sit cross-legged on the floor. They are listening as he speaks, though you cannot hear his words. This is education, the passing of knowledge from generation to generation. He may be teaching them the family's history, reciting the names and deeds of ancestors going back generations. He may be instructing them in the proper way to conduct themselves, the obligations they owe to the city and to the gods. Or he may be teaching them something more practical, the roots of trade, the value of goods, the way to negotiate with merchants from distant cities. Knowledge is power here, and it is closely guarded, passed only to those deemed worthy. The morning passes, the heat grows. By midday, the sun is a white fire overhead, and the plaza shimmers in the haze. Most people retreat to the shade, to their homes, to sleep through the worst of the heat. But the city does not stop entirely. In the market, vendors still sit with their goods fanning themselves, calling out occasionally to passers-by. You see textiles spread on mats, cotton cloth dyed in colors drawn from plants and insects and minerals. You see obsidian blades, their edges sharp enough to cut through flesh as easily as water, their surfaces shiny and black. You see cacao beans sorted by size, the currency of the Maya world, valuable enough to be hoarded, delicious enough to be ground and mixed with water and spices to make a bitter, frothy drink reserved for nobles and warriors. A merchant sits beside her display of jade pieces, each one carved into beads or pendants or tiny figurines of gods. Jade is more valuable than gold here. It is the color of growing maize, the color of water, the color of life itself. The finest jade, a deep translucent green, comes from a single river valley far to the south, and it passes through many hands before arriving here. The merchant watches the crowd with patient eyes, knowing that such treasures do not sell quickly, that the right buyer will come when the gods will it. Beyond the market, At the plaza's edge, where the city begins to yield to the jungle, you see a different kind of activity. Men are working to expand a platform, laying new stones, mixing limestone plaster in large clay basins. The work is slow, methodical. Each stone must be cut to fit, must be placed exactly. The plaster must be mixed to the right consistency, spread evenly, burnished smooth before it dries. This is not the work of slaves, though that word might come to mind. The Maya do not have slavery in the way you might imagine. These are commoners fulfilling their labor obligation to the city, their contribution to the communal projects that maintain and expand the ceremonial center. They work for a period, then return to their farms, replaced by others. It is a rotation, a system of reciprocal obligation that binds the community together. As the afternoon wears on, you leave the city's heart, following a smaller path that winds through the residential zones. Here the buildings are more modest, single-room structures with thatched roofs rather than stone vaults. Each is surrounded by a small garden plot where families grow vegetables, herbs, medicinal plants. Children play in the yards, their laughter cutting through the heavy air. They chase each other, play games with balls made of rubber tapped from trees, imitate the adults around them. A girl grinds maize on a miniature grinding stone, practicing the motion she will use every day of her adult life. A boy holds a small bow, shooting blunt arrows at a mark on a tree, training his eye and hand for the day he might be called to war or to hunt. The path leads you out of the dense residential area and into the agricultural zone. Here the transformation of the landscape becomes clear. The Maya have not simply cleared the jungle and planted crops. They have engineered the land. You see terraces carved into hillsides, each level held in place by stone retaining walls. These terraces capture rainwater, prevent erosion, create flat planting surfaces where the natural slope would make farming impossible. You see raised fields in low-lying areas, rectangular plots separated by canals. The canals drain excess water during the rainy season and provide irrigation during the dry months. The mud dredged from the canals is spread on the fields, enriching the soil. This is intensive agriculture, sophisticated and productive, the result of centuries of experimentation and accumulated knowledge. In the fields themselves, you see maize growing in association with beans and squash, the three plants that form the foundation of Maya diet. The maize stalks are already tall, their leaves rustling in the breeze. The bean plants climb the maize stalks, using them as natural trellises. The squash spreads along the ground between the stalks, its broad leaves shading the soil, preventing weeds, retaining moisture. This is polyculture, each plant supporting the others, each contributing to the health of the whole. The beans fix nitrogen in the soil, feeding the hungry maize. The squash provides food and keeps the ground covered. The maize provides structure and the primary caloric staple. Together they create a system that can support a large population in an environment that seems at first glance hostile to civilization. But look closer, and you see the strain. Some of the fields are tired, their soil depleted despite the farmers' best efforts. The Maya practice swidden agriculture as well, cutting and burning sections of forest to create new fields. The ash from the burned vegetation fertilizes the soil, and for a few years the new field is productive. But then the nutrients are exhausted, and the field must be abandoned, left to regenerate while the farmers move to a new plot. This system works, but it requires large amounts of land. As the population grows, the cycle accelerates. Fields are abandoned and reclaimed on shorter and shorter rotations. The forest is pushed further back. The delicate balance is becoming harder to maintain. You walk to the edge of a cenote, one of the natural sinkholes that dot this limestone landscape. The cenote is a perfect circle, perhaps 50 feet across, its water dark and still far below the lip of the opening. Steps have been carved into the rock, leading down to the water's surface. This is not just a water source, though it serves that function. This is a sacred place, a portal to Xibalba, the underworld. The Maya believe that water flows through a cosmic system, that the rain that falls from the sky sinks through the earth and collects in underground rivers and pools, and that these waters are the domain of the rain god Chak and the lords of death who dwell below. To draw water from a cenote is to take something from the gods, and it requires respect, requires offerings. At the water's edge, small ceramic vessels have been placed, gifts to the cenote spirit. Some still contain offerings, cacao or maize or flowers now rotted. Others are empty. their contents already accepted, dissolved into the sacred water. You can see more offerings deeper down, glimpsed through the clear water, vessels that have sunk to the bottom over years and centuries. And there, among the pots, something else. Bones, human bones. Not many, but unmistakable. These are the remains of sacrifices, individuals offered to the gods in times of great need. A drought, a war, a dynastic crisis. The cenote accepted them, took them into its depths, and in return perhaps sent rain or victory or stability. The late afternoon light is golden now, softer than the harsh midday glare. You return to the city, approaching it from a different angle. From here you can see how the ceremonial center sits on high ground, its pyramids visible from a great distance, a statement of human achievement rising above the jungle canopy. But you can also see how small it is in comparison to the forest itself. The city is an island, a clearing maintained by constant effort. If the people were to leave, if they were to stop cutting back the vegetation, stop repairing the buildings, the jungle would reclaim everything in a generation or two. The forest is patient, relentless. It waits at the edges, pressing in, sending vines and roots and seeds into every crack, every abandoned corner. You enter through a different part of the city now, passing a ball court. The court is shaped like a capital I, two parallel walls connected by end zones. The walls are sloped, covered in smooth plaster, and along their tops, rings of stone project outward, carved to look like serpents eating their own tails. This is where the sacred ball game is played, a game that is sport and ritual both. The players, elite warriors and nobles, use only their hips and thighs and elbows to keep a heavy rubber ball in motion, trying to send it through one of the stone rings. The game is difficult, physically brutal. Players wear thick padding, but injuries are common, and the stakes are higher than simple victory. The game reenacts mythic battles, the hero twins against the lords of death, the sun against darkness. Sometimes, though not always, the losing captain is sacrificed, his blood feeding the gods, ensuring cosmic balance. The court is empty now, but you can imagine it filled with spectators. The nobles seated in special viewing areas on top of the walls, the commoners standing in the end zones, the air thick with tension and excitement. You can imagine the sound of the balls striking the walls, the grunts of the players, the roar of the crowd when a point is scored. The ball game is more than entertainment. It is a way of resolving disputes between cities, of demonstrating prowess, of maintaining the cosmic order through controlled violence. As evening approaches, the quality of light changes again, the harsh heat dissipates, and a breeze moves through the plaza, carrying the scent of copal and cooking fires. People emerge from their midday rest and return to their activities. The market comes alive again. The plaza fills with people moving between their homes and the temples, stopping to talk, to make offerings, to simply be present in the communal space. This is when the city feels most alive, most human. The grandeur of the pyramids is still there, still dominant, but it is softened by the presence of ordinary life, by children running, by women talking, by old men sitting in the shade and watching the world pass. You find yourself at another temple, as dusk falls, smaller than the Great Pyramid but no less important. This one is dedicated to a particular deity, perhaps Kawil, the god of lightning and agricultural abundance, or Itzamna, the supreme god of creation. The temple's entrance faces west, toward the setting sun, and as the sun drops toward the horizon, its light floods directly into the temple's interior, illuminating the altar within. This is not accident. The temple was designed for this moment, aligned precisely to capture the sunset on significant days of the calendar. The Maya are masters of astronomy, and their architecture reflects their deep understanding of celestial mechanics. A priest stands at the temple's entrance now, silhouetted against the dying light. He is preparing for the evening ritual, the counterpart to the dawn ceremony you witnessed. As the sun descends, he will bid it farewell, will pray for its safe journey through the underworld, through Sebulba, where it must battle the lords of death before rising again tomorrow. This nightly journey is perilous, and without human prayers and offerings, the sun might not survive. The cosmos requires human participation. The gods and humans are bound in a reciprocal relationship. The gods create and sustain the world, but humans must nourish the gods with offerings, must maintain the rituals that keep the cosmic machinery functioning. The sun touches the horizon, and the priest's voice rises, a chant in a language that sounds like water and wind. You don't understand the words, but you feel their intention, their gravity. Other priests join him, and their voices layer, creating a tapestry of sound that fills the plaza. Incense smoke rises in thick columns. The last light catches it, turns it gold and red, and then the sun is gone, sinking below the edge of the world, leaving behind a sky that fades from orange to purple to deep blue. The city does not go dark. Torches are lit, small clay lamps filled with oil set out in doorways and along pathways. The light is warm and flickering, turning the white limestone walls soft and alive with shadows. The night is not silent. You hear the constant sound of the jungle, the insects and frogs creating a wall of noise that surrounds the city. You hear drums from one of the palace compounds, a celebration or a ceremony you cannot see. You hear voices, laughter, the sounds of life continuing in the darkness. You make your way to one of the raised platforms that overlooks the city. From here you can see the layout clearly, the way the pyramids and plazas are arranged not randomly but according to careful plan. The largest pyramid aligns with the rising sun on the equinoxes. Another aligns with the extreme positions of Venus. The causeways connect significant buildings and run in the cardinal directions, dividing the city into quadrants that mirror the Maya conception of the cosmos. The center is the axis mundi, the world tree, the point where earth meets sky and underworld. The four directions radiate outward, each associated with a color, a set of gods, a section of time. East is red, the direction of dawn and birth. North is white, the direction of the ancestors. West is black, the direction of death and sunset. South is yellow, the direction of the living world. The city is a map of the universe, built in stone, a place where the cosmic and the earthly interpenetrate. The stars are emerging now, brilliant in the darkness, unobscured by any lights beyond those few torches. The Maya know these stars intimately. They have names for constellations, track their movements, know which stars rise at which season. They pay particular attention to Venus, which they call Noek, the great star. Venus is associated with war, with sacrifice, with the god Kharil. When Venus rises as the morning star, it is a time of power and danger. Battles are timed to Venus's movements. Kings schedule their wars, their raids, their great public ceremonies according to the positions of Venus and the other planets. The priests who keep the astronomical records are among the most respected members of society. They work in observatories, buildings with specific sightlines to the horizon, openings through which they can track the rising and setting positions of celestial bodies over months and years and decades. They record their observations in books made from bark paper, folded screen style into long codices, covered with hieroglyphic texts and astronomical tables. These books contain the accumulated knowledge of generations, the patterns that allow the priests to predict eclipses, to know when Venus will appear, to calculate the movements of the moon with stunning accuracy. And they keep the calendar, or rather they keep multiple calendars, each serving a different purpose. The Hab is the solar calendar, 365 days divided into 18 months of 20 days each, plus a short 5-day period at the end considered unlucky and dangerous. The Tzolk'in is the sacred calendar, 260 days created by combining 20-day names with 13 numbers in a repeating cycle. The two calendars intermesh like gears, creating a larger cycle called the calendar round that repeats every 52 solar years. And beyond this, there is the long count, a linear calendar that counts the number of days since the beginning of the current world age, allowing the Maya to place events in absolute time, to record history with precision. Time for the Maya is not simply a measurement, it is a living force, cyclical and prophetic. Each day has a character, a set of associations and auguries. The priests consult the calendars before any important action, determining whether the day is favorable for planting or marriage or war. The calendar governs life, structures it, gives it meaning. To live in this city is to live within the framework of sacred time, to understand that your actions today echo actions taken on this same day in previous cycles and will echo forward into future cycles yet to come. You walk back through the darkened city toward the residential compound where you began your day. The streets are quieter now, though not empty. A group of young men passes, their laughter loud in the night. They have been drinking balke, a mildly alcoholic drink made from fermented honey and tree bark. It is drunk during festivals and ceremonies, a way of altering consciousness, of opening oneself to communication with the divine. The young men are not drunk, not disorderly, but they are looser, freer than they were in the harsh light of day. You pass a house where a family is eating their evening meal. Through the open doorway you see them sitting on low stools around a fire pit. They eat tamales, maize dough filled with beans or meat and steamed in leaves, and they dip torn pieces of flatbread into a bowl of sauce made from chili and tomato and ground pumpkin seeds. The meal is simple but nourishing, and they eat in companionable silence, tired from the day's work. After the meal they will sleep on woven reed mats spread on the floor, and tomorrow they will rise and begin again. This is the rhythm of life here, the daily cycle that mirrors the cosmic cycle, the sun's journey, the turning of the calendars, work and rest, offerings and prayers, planting and harvest. It is a life that seems, from the outside, harsh and demanding, the heat, the humidity, the constant threat of disease, of crop failure, of war. But it is also a life of deep meaning, a life embedded in story and ritual, a life where every action has cosmic significance. To grind maize is to participate in the sacred substance of creation. To plant a seed is to cooperate with the gods in sustaining life. To watch the stars is to read the will of heaven. The night deepens. The sounds of the jungle grow louder as the human sounds fade. You lie on a mat in one of the compounds, the darkness complete except for the faint glow of a dying fire. Through the doorway you can see a slice of sky, the stars wheeling slowly overhead. Somewhere in the distance, a jaguar coughs, its voice low and threatening. The jaguar is sacred, associated with the night sun traveling through the underworld, with kings and warriors, with power and danger. To hear it is to be reminded that the jungle is never far away, that the boundary between civilization and wilderness is thin, permeable. You close your eyes, and the sounds of the night become a kind of music, a rhythm that carries you toward sleep. This city, built by human hands in an impossible place, sustained by ingenuity and will and sacred obligation, continues its existence. Tomorrow, the sun will rise again, the priests will climb the pyramids, the market will fill with people and goods. The great cycle will continue, day after day, year after year, the city and its people fulfilling their role in the cosmic order, maintaining the delicate balance between chaos and creation. Now let us turn to the world of those who ruled this city, the divine lords and their courts. Imagine you are standing in the doorway of a palace compound, watching as the Ajor, the supreme ruler, prepares for the day's ceremonies. The palace is the largest and most elaborate structure in the city, after the main temple pyramids. It is not a single building, but a complex of rooms and courtyards arranged around a central plaza, all raised on a high platform that elevates it above the rest of the city. To enter the palace is to ascend, both physically and symbolically, toward the realm of the divine. The Ajor's quarters are in the innermost part of the complex, furthest from the public spaces. You approach through a series of doorways, each one guarded, each one marking a transition deeper into the sacred center of power. The walls of the palace are covered in murals, painted with such skill and detail that they seem almost alive. You see scenes of battle, the Ajor and his warriors capturing enemies, prisoners kneeling before the throne. You see scenes of ritual, the letting of blood, the offering of incense and precious goods to the gods. You see scenes from myth, the hero twins playing ball against the lords of death, the maize god emerging from the earth in rebirth. In the central courtyard, the Ajor himself emerges from his private chambers. He is a man in the prime of life, perhaps 40 years old, though it is hard to say with certainty. His body has been shaped since birth, to conform to the ideals of Maya beauty. His forehead slopes back dramatically, the result of binding in infancy. His nose is large and prominent, perhaps enhanced by a prosthetic extension worn during childhood. He is cross-eyed, a trait considered divine, perhaps also encouraged through manipulation in youth. His teeth are filed and inlaid with jade. His ears are pierced with large holes that hold jade cylinders. He wears an elaborate headdress made from the tail feathers of the quetzal bird, iridescent green feathers that cascade down his back. Around his neck, jade beads. Around his waist, a belt from which hangs a polished mirror made of hematite, a piece so valuable it has been traded across hundreds of miles. But the most important aspect of his appearance is his bearing. He moves with absolute certainty, with the knowledge that he is not simply a man but a living conduit between the human and divine realms. The Ajor is believed to be descended from the gods. his bloodline traced back through generations to the founders of the dynasty, and beyond them to the supernatural beings who created the world. His rule is not simply political, it is cosmological. When he performs rituals, when he lets his own blood, when he makes offerings, he is not just praying to the gods, he is activating the sacred power that flows through his divine body, channeling it for the benefit of his people and his city. Around him, attendants move with practiced efficiency. They carry the regalia he will need for today's ceremony. A jade pectoral, carved in the image of the maize god. A ceremonial axe, its blade made of polished jade, its handle wrapped in jaguar skin. A jade scepter shaped like the god Ka, with one leg transformed into a serpent. Each object is ancient, passed down through generations, accumulating power with each use. To touch these objects is to touch history, to connect with all the previous rulers who wielded them. The Ajar's day is structured entirely around ritual. He does not engage in the practical work of governance in the way you might imagine. He does not sit in meetings, does not review documents, does not make administrative decisions. Those tasks fall to his court, to the officials and scribes and nobles who surround him. His role is different, more fundamental. He is the one who communicates with the gods, who performs the ceremonies that maintain cosmic order, who embodies the city's relationship with the divine. His ritual performance is governance. When he successfully completes a ceremony, when he offers his blood or burns copal or dances in the plaza, he is ensuring the rain will fall, the maize will grow, the sun will rise. Political power and spiritual power are not separate in this world. They are the same thing. Today's ceremony is a bloodletting ritual, one of the most sacred and important acts a Maya ruler can perform. Blood is the most precious offering, the substance of life itself, and when it is freely given to the gods, it nourishes them, strengthens the connection between earth and sky. The Ajor prepares himself in a private chamber. He fasts, drinks water mixed with ground cacao, enters a state of meditation. Around him, priests chant, burn incense, create the sacred atmosphere necessary for what is to come. When he emerges, he is surrounded by his court. The nobles of the city, men and women both, dressed in their finest clothes, their bodies adorned with jade and shell and feathers. They form a procession, moving from the palace to the main plaza, where the population has already gathered. The crowd parts as the Ajor passes. People bow, lower their eyes. To look directly at the Ajor is presumptuous, perhaps even dangerous. His gaze carries power, and he does not spend it carelessly. In the plaza, a platform has been prepared. The Ajor ascends. He stands before the people, visible to all, and begins the ritual. An attendant hands him a stingray spine, sharp and barbed. The Ajor takes it, holds it aloft, so the crowd can see. Then, without hesitation, he draws it across his tongue. Blood flows immediately, bright red, dripping onto strips of bark paper held by priests below. The Ajor's face remains composed. This is not the first time he has done this. He has been doing this since his accession to the throne, perhaps even before, in training for his role. The pain is real, but it is also sacred, a price willingly paid. The bloodletting continues. The Ajar draws the spine through his tongue multiple times, and then through his earlobes, and finally, in a more private act screened from the main crowd, through his penis. This last act is the most powerful, the most direct connection to the generative force of life. The blood that falls is collected on the bark paper, which is then burned. The smoke rises, carrying the offering to the gods. The Ajar staggers slightly, weakened by blood loss, by pain, by the psychological intensity of the act. Attendants support him. He has done what was required. The gods have been fed. The contract has been renewed. Later, in the privacy of the palace, the Ajor rests. His wounds are treated with herbal poultices. He drinks balkay to dull the pain, and to continue the altered state of consciousness begun by the bloodletting. In this state, he may receive visions, messages from the gods or ancestors, guidance for the city's future. The line between the physical and spiritual worlds is thin for him always, but after bloodletting, it becomes almost transparent. He exists in both realms at once. His wife, the principal queen, sits beside him. She is a powerful figure in her own right, not simply the Ajar's consort, but a political actor, a ritual performer. She too has let blood today, drawing a thorn-studded cord through her tongue, her blood falling onto bark paper just as her husband's did. She comes from another powerful family, perhaps even from another city. Her marriage to the Ajol was arranged to cement an alliance, to join two lineages, to create a bond that transcends individual lives. She has borne him children, heirs who will continue the dynasty. But she is more than a mother and wife. She advises him on political matters, participates in ceremonies, manages aspects of the palace household. She has her own court, her own followers, her own sources of power. Around them, the palace continues its endless activity. Scribes work in side chambers, recording today's ritual in hieroglyphic texts that will be carved into stone monuments. They paint the scene on pottery and in codices. They ensure that this day will be remembered, will become part of the historical record. The scribes are specialists, trained from childhood in the complex art of Maya writing. The hieroglyphic system uses hundreds of signs, some representing whole words, others representing syllables. The same word can often be written in multiple ways, and the scribes choose signs not just for their phonetic value, but for their aesthetic beauty, their visual balance, their additional layers of meaning. A scribe dips his brush into a pot of pigment, black made from soot, red from hematite, blue from a rare mineral compound. He paints on smooth plaster, creating a text that combines image and word seamlessly. The glyphs are not simply written, they are composed, arranged into blocks, each block a miniature work of art. A date is recorded, using the long count system that places this day within the vast sweep of Maya time. The Ajol's name is written, his titles, his lineage. The event is described. He let blood. He scattered his offering. He spoke with the ancestors. Future generations will read this text and know what happened on this day. The act of recording is itself a sacred duty, a way of fixing events in permanent form, of ensuring they will not be forgotten by the gods or by humans. The palace is also a center of artistic production. In workshops attached to the compound, craftsmen create the objects that display and reinforce the Ajol's power. Jade carvers work with small copper saws and drills, slowly, painstakingly shaping the hard green stone into beads, pendants, ritual masks. A single piece might take months to complete. Feather workers sort and prepare the brilliant plumage of tropical birds, the quetzal's green, the scarlet macaw's red, the courtinger's bright blue. These feathers are woven into headdresses and capes, objects of stunning beauty and immense value. Weavers create textiles using backstrap looms, their fingers flying as they produce cloth, so fine it seems almost transparent, dyed with colors that will not fade, patterned with designs that carry layers of meaning. All of this production serves a single purpose: to manifest the Ajol's power in visible, tangible form. When he appears in public, adorned with jade and feathers, he is not simply wearing decorations. He is displaying the wealth and sophistication of his city, the skill of its craftsmen, the reach of its trade networks that bring these rare materials from across Mesoamerica. He is also displaying his connection to the divine. The jade is the color of maize, of life, of the world tree. The quetzal feathers are sacred, associated with the creator gods. To wear these things is to claim kinship with the supernatural. But the Ajol's power is not absolute, and it is never secure. He rules within a complex web of obligations and relationships. He must maintain the favor of the gods through constant ritual. He must maintain the loyalty of the noble families through rewards and marriages and demonstrations of power. He must maintain the support of the common people through successful governance, through ensuring that the rains come and the harvests are good and the city is protected from enemies. If he fails in any of these duties, his legitimacy can be questioned. A failed harvest, a military defeat, an eclipse he failed to predict, any of these can be seen as signs that he has lost divine favor, that the gods are displeased. There have been Ajors who were overthrown, dynasties that collapsed. The carved monuments in the plaza record not only triumphs but also usurpations, periods when the throne changed hands, when new families claimed power. The political history of the Maya world is a tapestry of alliances and betrayals, of cities rising and falling, of dynasties ending and beginning. Nothing is permanent except the underlying structure, the belief in divine kingship itself, the conviction that the cosmos requires a human ruler to mediate between heaven and earth. The Ajor in this city, the one whose bloodletting you witnessed, is the 23rd in his line. His dynasty has ruled for over 300 years, a span of time that connects him to ancestors who witnessed the city's founding, who built the first modest temples, who established the patterns and rituals that continue today. He knows the names of all his predecessors, recites them during ceremonies, calls upon them for guidance. They are not distant historical figures to him. They are present, active participants in the life of the city, their spirits dwelling in the temples and monuments that bear their images. And yet, for all his power and divine status, the Ajah is also mortal. He will age, sicken, die. The succession is never certain until it happens. He has several sons, each one a potential heir, each one supported by different factions within the noble families. When he dies, there will be negotiations, perhaps conflicts, before one son is elevated to the throne. The succession crisis is a time of danger and opportunity, a moment when the city's political structure is exposed and vulnerable. But it is also a time of renewal, when a new Ajah can redefine relationships, forge new alliances, begin a new chapter in the dynasty's history. For now, though, he rules. He rises each day and performs the rituals that sustain the world. He appears before his people as the living embodiment of divine power. And the city, recognizing him as the axis around which their cosmos turns, continues its daily life in the shadow of his palace and beneath the gaze of the gods he serves. Now let us ascend higher still, beyond even the palace, to the realm where human and divine most directly meet. The temple complexes that crown the Great Pyramids are not simply places of worship. They are astronomical observatories, libraries of knowledge, centers of a sophisticated intellectual tradition that has been developing for over 1,000 years. The priests who tend these temples are not merely ritual performers. They are scholars, mathematicians, astronomers, the inheritors of accumulated wisdom stretching back through generations. Imagine you are climbing the steep stairs of the main pyramid, ascending toward the temple at its summit. The climb is arduous, designed to be so. Each step is an act of devotion, a physical prayer. By the time you reach the top, you are breathing hard, your legs trembling with effort. But the view takes what remains of your breath away. From here you can see the entire city spread below. The pyramids and plazas and residential compounds, the causeways stretching out into the surrounding forest. You can see the agricultural fields, the patches of forest at different stages of regeneration. You can see in the distance other cities, their pyramids visible on the horizon, marking centers of power and civilization scattered across the landscape. The temple itself is smaller than the platform that supports it, but its interior is dense with meaning. The walls are covered in hieroglyphic texts, historical records and astronomical calculations intermingled. The ceiling beams are carved with celestial symbols, the path of the sun, the phases of the moon, the cycles of Venus. In one corner, an altar stone, its surface carved with the image of the world tree, Axis Mundi, the great Seba that connects the underworld below, the earthly plane in the middle, and the 13 levels of heaven above. On the altar, offerings have been placed. Copal incense still smoldering, fresh flowers, a ceramic vessel filled with cacao. A priest sits cross-legged before a low table, a codex unfolded in front of him. The codex is made from bark paper, beaten thin and coated with lime plaster to create a smooth white surface. It is folded accordion style, pages connected in a long strip that can be opened section by section. The priest's codex is astronomical, filled with tables tracking the movements of Venus. The planet is currently visible as the morning star, rising just before the sun. The priest has been observing it for months, noting its position against the background stars, recording the data in the codex. He is checking his observations against the predictions made by his predecessors, confirming that the cycle continues as expected. The Maya have been tracking Venus for centuries, and they know its patterns with extraordinary precision. They know that Venus appears as the morning star for approximately 263 days, then disappears from view for about 50 days during inferior conjunction when it passes between Earth and the Sun. It then reappears as the evening star for another 263 days, disappears again for 8 days during superior conjunction when it passes behind the Sun, and the cycle begins again. The complete cycle takes 584 days, a number the priests have calculated with stunning accuracy. But they don't stop there. They have discovered that 5 Venus cycles of 584 days equal 8 solar years of 365 days, creating a larger synchronization. They use this knowledge to structure their calendar, to schedule ceremonies, to determine auspicious times for war and statecraft. The Venus cycle is recorded in the codex not just as astronomical data but as prophecy. Each appearance of Venus is associated with different omens, different gods, different implications for human affairs. To know when Venus will rise is to know when the gods are most active, when their power is most accessible or most dangerous. The priest looks up from his codex as you approach. His eyes are sharp, intelligent, taking your measure. He gestures for you to sit, to look at the codex with him. Even if you cannot read the hieroglyphs, the structure of the tables is clear. Columns of numbers recorded in the Maya vigesimal system. Base 20. Each position represents a power of 20. Just as in your decimal system, each position represents a power of 10. The Maya use only 3 symbols to write any number: a dot for 1, a bar for 5, and a shell for 0. Yes, 0. The Maya developed the concept of 0 independently, using it as a placeholder in their positional notation system, a mathematical innovation that most cultures took centuries longer to achieve. The priest explains, speaking slowly so you can follow, that the temple is oriented to capture specific astronomical events. On certain days of the year, the rising sun will shine directly through the temple's doorway, illuminating the altar within. On other days, Venus will rise in alignment with a particular architectural feature. The entire structure is a calendar in stone, a device for marking time, for anchoring human ritual to celestial rhythms. He takes you to the temple's doorway and points to the horizon. There, he shows you, is the point where the sun rises on the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, and there is where it rises on the winter solstice, the shortest day. The 2 points mark the extremes of the sun's annual north-south journey along the horizon. Between them, the sun rises at the equinoxes, when day and night are equal. The Maya mark all of these points, build sightlines into their architecture to track them, use them to structure their calendar and their agricultural year. But their astronomical knowledge goes beyond simple observation. They can predict eclipses, both solar and lunar, with remarkable accuracy. They understand that eclipses occur in cycles, that they repeat in predictable patterns. They have recorded these patterns in their codices, created tables that allow them to forecast when the next eclipse will occur. An eclipse is a dangerous time, a moment when the cosmic order is disrupted, when the sun or moon is attacked and devoured by celestial monsters. But if the priests can predict it, they can prepare, can perform the rituals necessary to help the threatened celestial body survive the attack and return to its normal state. The priest shows you another codex, this one dealing with the moon. The Maya track the lunar cycle with precision. Know that it takes 29.53 days for the moon to complete one phase cycle from new moon to new moon. They have calculated this number accurately to within minutes. They use the lunar cycle for timing agricultural activities, for determining when to plant and harvest. The moon's phases are associated with different deities, different qualities. A new moon is a time of beginnings, of planting, of starting new ventures. A full moon is a time of completion, of harvest, of bringing things to fruition. All of this knowledge is recorded, preserved, passed from teacher to student in an unbroken chain. The priests form a specialized class, trained from childhood in the complex arts of reading and writing, calculation and observation. They come from noble families, children selected for their intelligence and dedication, taken into the temple schools where they spend years learning. They memorize the names and attributes of hundreds of gods. They learn to read the hieroglyphs, both the standard forms and the more elaborate calligraphic variations. They practice calculation, working with the Maya numerical system until they can perform complex calculations with ease. They learn the structure of the calendars, the way the different cycles interlock and synchronize. And they learn observation. They spend nights on the temple platforms watching the sky, noting the positions of stars and planets, tracking their movements across the seasons. This is not abstract academic knowledge. It is practical, essential to the functioning of society. The agricultural calendar depends on accurate timekeeping. The political calendar, the scheduling of ceremonies and wars, depends on reading the omens in the heavens. The priests are not separate from society. They are integral to it, providing the knowledge and ritual performance that allows civilization to function. The priest leads you to another part of the temple complex, a room where several codices are stored, each one rolled and wrapped in cloth, kept dry and protected from insects. These are the city's library, its accumulated knowledge. Some deal with astronomy and mathematics. Others record history, the reigns of kings, the dates of important battles and ceremonies. Still others are divinatory, containing the almanacs that priests consult to determine the character of each day, to advise individuals on when to marry or plant or begin a journey. The divinatory codices are perhaps the most consulted. Every person in the city, from the Ajor to the poorest farmer, wants to know what the gods have in store, what the future holds. The priests consult the Tzolkin, the 260-day sacred calendar, to provide these answers. Each day in the Tzolkin has a unique combination of a number from 1 to 13 and a name from a list of 20-day signs. Each combination carries its own meaning, its own omens. Some days are auspicious for certain activities, unlucky for others. A day named Khan, associated with maize and abundance, might be good for planting. A day named Kimi, associated with death and the underworld, might be dangerous for travel but appropriate for communicating with ancestors. People come to the priests with questions, with concerns, with requests for guidance. The priest consults the codex, locates the current day in the 260-day cycle, reads the associated omens. He might cast lots, throw crystals or seeds and interpret their patterns. He might enter a trance state, commune directly with the gods or ancestors, return with messages and advice. This is not charlatanism. The priest genuinely believes in his ability to access divine knowledge, and his community believes it too. The system works because everyone participates in it, because the shared framework of belief gives meaning to the signs and patterns the priest interprets. The sacred ball game, which you saw the empty court for earlier, is another aspect of this cosmic understanding. The game is more than sport. It reenacts the mythic ball game played by the hero twins, Hunahpu and Xbalanque, against the lords of Ixabolba, the underworld. According to the story recorded in the Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the Quiché Maya, the twins' father and uncle were killed by the lords of death for daring to play ball and disturb the underworld with their noise. The twins, seeking to avenge their father, descended to Ixabolba and challenged the Death Lords to a ball game. Through cleverness and skill, they defeated the lords of death, bringing light and order to the cosmos. When nobles and warriors play the ball game in the city's court, they are not just competing. They are ritually reenacting this cosmic struggle. The ball itself represents the sun journeying through the underworld. The court represents the portal between worlds. The game's outcome has meaning beyond the immediate victory or defeat. It speaks to larger questions of cosmic order, of the balance between life and death, light and darkness. Sometimes the losing captain is sacrificed, his blood offered to the gods, his death ensuring the sun's continued movement, the crop's continued growth. This is an honor, not simply a punishment. To die in this way is to become part of the sacred cycle, to give one's life meaning by offering it for the benefit of all. The sun is descending now from its zenith. The priest concludes his lessons, rolls the codices carefully, returns them to their storage place. He invites you to join him in the evening ceremony, but first, he says, you should see the rest of the city, understand how all the pieces fit together. The temple and the palace are the Sacred Heart, but they exist to serve the broader community, the thousands of people who live in the residential zones, who farm the fields, who make and trade goods, who raise children and maintain the daily life that sustains everything else. You descend the pyramid, your legs shaking from the effort of the climb and the descent. At the base you take a different path, leading away from the ceremonial center toward the outer residential areas. The change is gradual. The buildings become simpler, the plazas smaller and less formal. You enter a neighborhood of commoners, the farmers and craftspeople who make up the majority of the city's population. Here, life is less grand but no less meaningful. The homes are single-room structures with walls made of poles and packed earth, roofs thatched with palm fronds. Each house sits on a low platform, raised slightly above the ground to keep it dry during the rainy season. Around each house is a small yard enclosed by a low wall or hedge. In these yards, families grow vegetables, keep small animals, store tools and materials. Children play, watched by grandmothers too old for heavy work but still valued for their knowledge and their ability to care for the young while the adults are in the fields. You see a woman sitting in her yard, weaving on a backstrap loom. One end of the loom is tied to a tree, the other end wrapped around her waist, allowing her to control the tension of the threads by leaning back or forward. She works quickly, her hands moving in a rhythm established by years of practice. The cloth taking shape on the loom is destined to become a huppe, the long tunic that is the basic garment for Maya women. She is weaving a pattern into it, not writing it down or following a diagram but holding it in her memory, each thread placed according to a design she learned from her mother, who learned it from her mother, a tradition stretching back through generations. Weaving is women's work, sacred work. According to myth, the goddess Ixchel taught women to weave, gave them this skill as a gift. To weave is to participate in the creative act, to take disparate threads and create unity, pattern, beauty. The finest weavers are highly respected. Their work is not just functional. It carries meaning, displays wealth and status, communicates identity. A woman's huppel announces what community she belongs to, what rank her family holds, what stage of life she is in. The woman's husband is not present. He is in the fields working his milpa, the plot of land where he grows maize and beans and squash. The milpa system is the foundation of Maya agriculture. The reason this civilization can exist, it is a form of swidden farming, where a section of forest is cut and burned, the ash providing fertilizer for several years of intensive cropping. After the soil is exhausted, the plot is abandoned and allowed to regenerate while the farmer moves to a new section. But the milpa is more than just a field. It is a microcosm of Maya cosmology. The maize at its center represents humanity, created by the gods from maize dough. The beans climbing the maize stalks represent interdependence, cooperation. The squash spreading along the ground represents the earth itself, fertile and giving. To work the milpa is to engage in a sacred dialogue with the gods, to accept the gifts they provide, and to reciprocate with offerings and prayers. The farmer rose before dawn, walked to his field in the cool morning air. He carries a digging stick, a simple tool but effective, sharpened and fire-hardened. With it, he makes holes in the earth, drops seeds, covers them. He works steadily, methodically, his body knowing the motions after years of repetition. He talks to the maize as he plants, asks it to grow strong, promises to care for it. This is not superstition, it is relationship, recognition that the plants are alive, that they respond to attention and care. As the day heats up, he takes a break, sitting in the shade at the field's edge. He eats a simple meal brought from home, tamales and water. He watches the sky, noting the clouds, judging whether rain will come. The season is dry now, and the planted seeds are waiting for the rains to begin, for the water that will trigger germination and growth. If the rains are late, if they don't come at all, the crop will fail, and the city will face hunger. This is the farmer's constant concern, the uncertainty that underlies all agricultural life. He can do everything right, can plant at the correct time, can tend his field with care, and still the gods might withhold rain, might send locusts, might allow the crop to fail. All he can do is his part, and trust that the priests are doing theirs, that the rituals are being performed correctly, that the gods will be pleased and the rains will come. In the afternoon he returns to the city, tired but satisfied with his work. He stops at the household shrine, a small structure at the edge of the family compound. Inside, a ceramic brazier shaped like a deity, offerings of copal and flowers. He adds a small handful of maize kernels, a prayer of thanks for the day's work, a request for continued favor. The shrine is tended by his wife and mother, but he too makes offerings, maintains the relationship with the gods that sustains his family. His children are growing. His eldest son, nearly 12 years old, is beginning to work in the fields, learning the skills he will need as an adult. The boy is quick, strong, eager to prove himself. In a few more years he will be ready for his coming-of-age ceremony, when he will be formally recognized as a man, given adult responsibilities and privileges. His younger daughter helps her mother with weaving and grinding, learning the skills she will need. She is 8 years old, bright and curious, always asking questions. Will she marry? Will she stay in this city or go to another as part of a political alliance? The future is uncertain, but for now, she is a child, allowed to play and learn and grow. The family gathers in the evening for their meal. They sit in a circle, eating together, talking about the day. The grandmother tells stories, myths about the gods and heroes, tales that teach moral lessons and explain the world's workings. She tells the story of how the gods created humanity, trying first with mud, then with wood, finally succeeding with maize. She tells about the hero twins and their adventures in the underworld. She tells about the great flood that destroyed the previous world age and how the current world was created from the ruins of the old. The children listen, rapt. These are not just stories. They are history, cosmology, the framework that makes sense of existence. After the meal, the family rests. The father checks his tools, sharpens his digging stick, mends a basket. The mother works on her weaving by firelight, though she will not work long. The light is poor, and she must save her eyes for daylight hours. The children play a game, taking turns tossing small pebbles into a circle drawn in the dirt. The grandmother hums to herself, a melody without words, ancient and soothing. This is the life of the common Maya, the foundation on which the entire civilization rests. The farmers who grow the food, the weavers who make the cloth, the potters who create the vessels, the workers who build and maintain the structures, they are not slaves. They are members of the community, bound by obligation and reciprocity. They give their labor, their produce, their skills, and in return they receive protection, access to the ceremonial center, participation in the cosmic order maintained by the priests and the Ajah. It is important to understand that Maya society, while hierarchical, is not rigidly separated. The nobles and commoners are not completely different classes. They are points on a spectrum, connected by ties of kinship, patronage, and mutual obligation. A successful farmer might have his daughter marry into a minor noble family, elevating his family's status. A noble family that falls from favor might find itself reduced, its members working alongside commoners. Status is somewhat fluid, earned and maintained through service and relationship, rather than being purely hereditary. The city operates on a complex economy that is not based on money in the way you understand it. There are no coins, no paper currency. Instead, trade is conducted through barter and through the use of certain goods as units of value. Cacao beans are the most common. A string of cacao beans, carefully counted, can be used to purchase cloth or pottery, or food. Jade beads serve a similar function for higher value transactions. Hopper bells and axes are used for trade over longer distances, as they are valuable and portable. But much of the economy is not about trade at all. It is about obligation and redistribution. Farmers owe a portion of their harvest to the Ajah and the temple, a tax paid in kind. This produce is stored in large warehouses near the palace. Some is used to feed the priests and scribes and craftspeople who do not farm. Some is distributed during ceremonies and festivals, a way of redistributing wealth and reinforcing social bonds. Some is held in reserve against crop failures, insurance against famine. Similarly, craftspeople owe their products to the palace. A potter makes vessels on commission, creates specific forms for ritual use or for export. A jade carver works on pieces for the Ajah's regalia. A feather worker creates headdresses for ceremonies. They are compensated not with money, but with access to stored food, with protection, with status within the community. The economy is embedded in social relationships, not abstracted from them. Trade extends beyond the city's borders. Maya civilization is not a single unified empire, but a network of independent city-states, each ruled by its own Ajah, each with its own territory and population. These cities maintain complex relationships with one another, sometimes allied, sometimes at war, always engaged in trade. Long-distance traders, called populum, travel the routes between cities, carrying goods and information. Imagine you meet one of these traders at the edge of the city. He is preparing for a journey to a coastal city, several days' walk to the north. His group consists of perhaps 20 men, each carrying a heavy pack supported by a tumpline across the forehead. There are no pack animals here, no horses or oxen. Everything must be carried by human labor. The packs are filled with goods for trade, obsidian blades from the highland quarries, excellent cutting tools desired throughout the lowlands, colorful pottery from this city's workshops, known for their distinctive style, cacao from the city's groves, always in demand, jade pieces, though these are carefully guarded, too valuable to risk losing to bandits. The trader is an experienced man, middle-aged, his body lean and tough from years of walking long distances with heavy loads. He wears a simple cotton cloak, but carries a staff tipped with jade, a sign of his status as a merchant under the protection of the merchant god, Ekchua. Around his neck, a small deity figurine, probably Ekchua himself, rendered in clay and carried as a protective talisman. He explains his route. They will follow the main causeway out of the city, then take a well-worn path through the forest, connecting this city to others in a network of trade routes that spans the entire Maya world. The journey will take 5 or 6 days of hard walking. They will sleep in the forest, building temporary shelters, always alert for jaguars or bandits. At certain points, they will stop at smaller settlements, villages where they can trade for food and rest. Finally, they will reach the coastal city, where they will sell their goods and purchase other goods to bring back. Salt from the coastal lagoons, dried fish, shells for jewelry, perhaps news of political developments, marriages, wars. The traders are information carriers, as much as goods carriers, connecting the cities in a web of knowledge and rumor. Trade is respected work, but also dangerous. The forests between cities are not completely safe. There are predators, both animal and human. Raiders from rival cities might ambush a trading party, steal the goods, capture or kill the traders. The traders go armed, carrying spears and shields, prepared to defend themselves. They also carry letters of safe passage, carved wooden tokens or written documents that identify them as merchants under the protection of their city's ajor. This usually ensures safe passage, as attacking protected merchants can lead to diplomatic crises and even war. When the traders return from their journey, successful and laden with new goods, they will present themselves at the palace. A portion of what they bring will be given to the ajor as tribute, payment for the protection they enjoyed. The rest is theirs to dispose of as they see fit, to trade in the market or to keep for personal use. Successful traders can become wealthy, can elevate their family's status. Some traders' sons become nobles, marry into elite families. Trade is a path to advancement, one of the few ways a commoner can significantly change his family's fortunes. The city is not isolated. It exists within a larger world, connected by these trade routes to dozens of other cities, large and small. Together, these cities form Maya civilization, a shared culture despite political fragmentation. The cities speak the same language, or closely related dialects. They worship the same gods, though different cities emphasize different deities. They use the same calendrical systems, write in the same hieroglyphic script. They share artistic styles, architectural forms, ritual practices. A person from this city would feel at home in any other Maya city, would recognize the pyramids and temples, understand the ceremonies, be able to read the inscriptions. But they also compete. Each city seeks to expand its power, to dominate its neighbors, to capture the most valuable trade routes. This competition sometimes leads to war, but Maya warfare is particular in its nature and purpose. It is not about conquest in the sense of occupying and administering foreign territory. It is about domination, about forcing rival cities to acknowledge your city's superiority, to pay tribute, to provide captives for sacrifice. Imagine a day when war comes to this city, not a foreign invasion but a raid, a carefully planned military action against a nearby rival. The ajor has consulted with his advisors, with the priests who read the omens in the stars. Venus is rising as the morning star, a favorable time for war. The date has been set. The warriors assembled. War in the Maya world is as much ritual as practical violence, conducted according to specific protocols and guided by religious belief. The warriors gather in the plaza before dawn. They are the city's elite younger sons of noble families, men trained from childhood in the arts of combat. They wear thick cotton armor, quilted and soaked in brine to make it hard, effective against the obsidian blades and wooden clubs that are the Maya's primary weapons. Over the armor, they wear elaborate regalia, jaguar pelts draped over their shoulders, signifying courage and ferocity, helmets carved to look like the heads of gods or animals, transforming the wearer into something more than human. Face paint in dramatic patterns, red and black colors of war and violence. They carry weapons that are beautiful and deadly, war clubs edged with sharp obsidian blades, spears with obsidian points, athlets, spear throwers that use leverage to increase the force and range of a thrown spear, shields painted with the warrior's personal glyphs and with images of protective gods. These are not professional soldiers in the sense of a standing army. They are nobles fulfilling their social obligation, demonstrating their worth through martial prowess. The ajor addresses them from the top of the pyramid, his voice carrying across the plaza. He reminds them of past victories, of the glory that awaits them, of their duty to the gods and to the city. He performs a brief bloodletting, his blood feeding the war god, ensuring divine favor. The priests blow conch shell trumpets, the deep sound echoing through the forest, announcing the warrior's departure. They leave the city in formation, moving along the causeway and then into the forest on narrow paths. They move quietly, disciplined despite their elaborate appearance. The goal is to reach the rival city undetected, to arrive in the pre-dawn darkness and attack at first light, catching the enemy unprepared. This is not a siege. Maya cities are not walled in the way European cities are. The ceremonial centers are open, accessible. Defense relies on early warning, on the ability to mobilize defenders quickly. The attacking force reaches the rival city as planned. They wait in the forest at the plaza's edge, watching as the first light touches the pyramid tops. Then they charge, screaming war cries, blowing whistles, creating as much noise and chaos as possible. The goal is not to kill indiscriminately, it is to capture. Warriors engage in hand-to-hand combat, seeking to seize enemy warriors alive. A captured warrior, especially a high-status one, is a tremendous prize. He will be brought back to the victorious city, paraded through the streets, and eventually sacrificed in a public ceremony that will humiliate the rival city and glorify the victors. The battle is brief but intense. The rival city's warriors respond quickly, emerging from their homes and rallying to defend the ceremonial center. Clubs swing, obsidian blades flash. Men grapple, trying to overwhelm and capture rather than kill outright. Some warriors fall, their thick armor cut through, blood pooling on the plaza's white limestone. Others are subdued, their arms bound, their elaborate regalia stripped away. The Ajar of the attacking city, fighting alongside his warriors, manages to capture a high-ranking noble from the rival city. This is a personal triumph, a feat that will be recorded in stone and celebrated for generations. After an hour of fighting, the attacking force withdraws, carrying their captives. They have achieved their objective. They have demonstrated their superiority, captured valuable prisoners, inflicted humiliation on their rivals. They return to their city as heroes, greeted by crowds who line the causeways to watch the victorious procession. The captives are paraded through the city, their status as nobles making their capture all the more significant. They are not killed immediately. They will be kept for weeks or months, displayed during ceremonies, a constant reminder of the victory. Their eventual sacrifice will be the culmination of elaborate rituals, their blood offered to the gods, their deaths transforming them from enemies into sacred offerings. War serves multiple purposes in Maya society. It is a way of resolving disputes, of establishing dominance, of capturing resources and labor. But it is also deeply religious, a way of obtaining captives for sacrifice, which is necessary to maintain cosmic order. The gods require blood, particularly noble blood, to sustain the sun's journey and the world's continuation. Warfare provides this blood, channels human violence into a cosmologically meaningful framework. For the victorious city, the war's aftermath involves celebration and memorialization. The Ajar commissions a new monument, a stela that will stand in the plaza and record the victory for posterity. Scribes carve the stone with hieroglyphic texts, describing the date of the battle using the long count and salkin, naming the captured nobles, praising the Ajar's personal prowess. An artist carves an image of the Ajar standing in victory pose, one foot on the back of a crouching captive, his regalia elaborate, his expression stern and powerful. This monument will stand for centuries, weather permitting, announcing to all who see it that this Ajar was victorious, that this city was powerful, that the gods favored them. For the defeated city, the loss is humiliating but not necessarily catastrophic. They will rebuild, will seek their own opportunity for revenge, or will forge new alliances to protect themselves. The political landscape of the Maya world is constantly shifting, alliances forming and dissolving, cities rising and falling in relative power. No single city dominates for long. Instead, there is a dynamic balance, a system of competing powers that prevents any one city from achieving lasting hegemony. This competitive system drives cultural achievement. Cities compete not just militarily, but also in building projects, in artistic production, in demonstrating their wealth and sophistication. The Great Pyramids are built partly for religious reasons, but also as statements of power, visible markers that can be seen from rival cities, announcements that we are wealthy, that we can command the labor necessary for such projects, that our gods favor us. The competitive pressure pushes innovation, encourages excellence, creates the conditions for the remarkable achievements of Maya civilization. But warfare also has costs. Resources spent on war are resources not spent on other things. Young men killed or captured are laborers lost, farmers who will not plant crops, craftsmen who will not produce goods. And there is always the risk that a war will go badly, that your city will be the one humiliated, your nobles captured and sacrificed, your Ajor's prestige damaged. Warfare is a gamble, necessary, but dangerous, part of the fabric of Maya life, but never entirely predictable in its outcomes. Now let us turn to the scribes, those specialists who preserve and transmit knowledge, who give permanence to the spoken word and the ephemeral event. The scribes occupy a unique position in Maya society, neither among the highest nobility nor among the commoners, but in a specialized professional class that serves the elite while maintaining its own identity and traditions. Imagine you enter a scribe's workshop, a room in one of the palace complexes. The space is organized and meticulously maintained. Along one wall, shelves hold ceramic vessels filled with pigments, black made from charcoal and soot, red from hematite, ground fine and mixed with water, yellow from ochre, blue from a rare and complex compound involving indigo and a special clay, a color highly prized and difficult to produce, green from mixing yellow and blue. Each color has its meaning, its appropriate uses. Red is the color of the east, of dawn, of life and blood. Black is the color of the west, of death and the underworld. Blue is associated with sacrifice, with the sacred, often painted on victims before ritual death. The scribe sits at a low bench, a partially completed codex spread before him. He is copying an older text, preserving knowledge that might otherwise be lost. The work requires intense concentration. Each hieroglyphic sign must be precisely drawn, each stroke of the brush controlled. The hieroglyphs are not simply writing. They are art, miniature images that must be beautiful as well as legible. A glyph representing a jaguar head must actually look like a jaguar, recognizable, powerful. A glyph representing a day name must capture the essence of that day's meaning in its visual form. The scribe is not simply copying mechanically. He is interpreting, making decisions about which variant forms of signs to use, how to arrange the glyphs within their blocks for maximum aesthetic effect. He reads the text as he writes it, understanding the content, sometimes adding his own marginal notes or corrections if he finds an error in the source document. The knowledge contained in these codices is not inert data. It is living information, constantly being engaged with, reinterpreted, transmitted. This particular codex is a historical record, chronicling the reigns of the city's past Ajors. It begins with the dynasty's founder, recording his name, his birth date, his accession to the throne, the date and manner of his death. Each subsequent Ajor is recorded in turn, creating an unbroken chain of rulers stretching back through centuries. The text is interspersed with dates from the long count, placing each event in absolute time. A reader with knowledge of the calendar system can determine exactly how many days have passed since the world's creation to any event recorded here. The scribe explains that he learned his craft as a child, taken into the palace at age 7 because he showed aptitude for memorization and drawing. His training lasted years. He first learned to mix pigments, to prepare surfaces, the practical skills of the craft. Then he began learning to read, starting with simple signs, gradually building vocabulary. He memorized lists of glyphs, practiced drawing them over and over until his hand could produce each form without thinking. He learned the numerical system, practiced calculations. He studied the calendars, learned to convert between different systems, to calculate forward and backward in time. But literacy is more than technical skill. It is entry into a world of knowledge and power. The scribe can read the monuments in the plaza, understand the histories they record. He can read the codices in the temple, access the astronomical and divinatory knowledge they contain. He knows things that the common people do not, and this knowledge gives him status, makes him valuable to the elite who depend on written records to maintain their power and legitimacy. The hieroglyphic system the scribe uses is complex, more complex than a simple alphabet. It is a mixed system, using some signs that represent whole words and others that represent syllables. The same word can often be spelled in multiple ways, using different combinations of word signs and syllable signs. This flexibility allows for artistic variation, for the creation of texts that are visually interesting and balanced. It also means that learning to read and write requires memorizing hundreds of signs and understanding the principles that govern how they combine. A scribe must also understand context and convention. Some texts are historical, narratives that follow specific formulas. They begin with a date, introduce a subject, describe an action, often end with another date and a statement of the text's purpose. Other texts are astronomical, organized as tables with repeated numerical and calendrical elements. Still others are mythological or divinatory, requiring different interpretive frameworks. A trained scribe can recognize these different text types and read them appropriately. The scribe's work is not limited to codices. He also carves inscriptions on stone monuments, creates painted texts on pottery, records information on bark paper for more temporary purposes. Each medium requires slightly different techniques. Stone carving is slow, laborious, requires careful planning since errors cannot easily be corrected. The scribe first draws the design on the stone's surface using charcoal, mapping out where each glyph will go, ensuring proper spacing and alignment. Then he uses stone and copper tools to cut away the background, leaving the glyphs in relief. The work might take weeks or months for a large monument, multiple scribes working together, coordinating their efforts to maintain stylistic consistency. Pottery painting is faster, more fluid. The scribe paints on the curved surface of a vessel, adapting the text to fit the available space, sometimes incorporating it into larger pictorial scenes. These ceramic texts often record dedications, stating who commissioned the vessel, what it contains, who it was made for. They might record mythological scenes, the painted images accompanied by hieroglyphic captions that identify the characters and narrate the action. The finest painted pottery is traded across the Maya world, valued not just for its practical use, but for its artistic and textual content. The scribe is also a keeper of secrets. Some knowledge is not meant for public consumption. The precise methods for calculating eclipses, the details of certain rituals, the political intrigues and arrangements that shape the city's governance. These things are recorded but kept within the scribal and priestly classes. Knowledge is power, and its controlled distribution maintains social hierarchies. As you watch the scribe work, you become aware of the depth of tradition he embodies. The writing system he uses has been in continuous use for over 1,000 years. Scribes in cities far away, cities he has never visited, use the same system, can read what he writes. The oldest monuments, carved centuries before this scribe's birth, are still legible to him. He is part of an intellectual tradition that spans time and space, connecting the Maya world into a literate civilization. But literacy is restricted. Most people in the city cannot read. They depend on public readings of texts, on the oral transmission of knowledge, on memory and tradition. The hieroglyphic inscriptions on monuments are meant to be seen, their visual impact important even for those who cannot read them. The presence of writing, even if not understood, conveys authority, permanence, connection to the divine. The monuments speak to the literate elite and to the gods, recording deeds that will outlast individual lives, that will remain when the adjors and nobles of this generation have become ancestors themselves. The concept of time that underlies all this record-keeping is distinctly Maya. Time is not simply linear, an arrow pointing from past to future. It is cyclical, patterns repeating at different scales. The day cycle, the lunar cycle, the solar year, the Venus cycle, all these rhythms interlock and create larger patterns. The Maya believe that time itself has character, that each moment is qualitatively different based on its position in these various cycles. The same day name in the Tzolk'in will recur every 260 days, and each recurrence carries echoes of previous occurrences. History repeats, not exactly but analogously. To know the past is to have insight into the future. The long count allows the Maya to track these cycles with precision. A date in the long count consists of 5 numbers, each representing a different time period. The smallest unit is the kinkan, a single day. 20 kinkan make a winnow, roughly a month. 18 winnow make a tinkan, approximately a year. 20 tinkan make a kinkan, about 20 years. 20 kinkan make a batinkan, roughly 400 years. A complete long count date specifies exactly how many of each unit have elapsed since the beginning of the current world age, which the Maya placed at a date equivalent to August 11th, 3114 BCE in our calendar. This system allows the Maya to place any event in absolute time, to calculate the interval between any two dates, to project forward or backward through centuries with mathematical precision. It reflects a culture that thinks in terms of deep time, that sees individual human lives as part of vast cosmic cycles, that believes the world has been created and destroyed multiple times and will be again. The current world age, the fourth or fifth depending on which tradition you follow, is not eternal. It too will end, though when this will occur is a matter of debate and calculation among the priests. This long temporal perspective shapes Maya culture in subtle ways. Building projects are conceived in terms of generations. A pyramid begun in one Ajah's reign might not be completed until his grandson's time. The carving of a monument, the planting of a dynasty, the establishment of a trade route, these are seen as contributions to something larger than individual lives, something that will persist and bear fruit in future cycles. Now let us consider the aesthetic dimension of Maya life, the pursuit of beauty and transformation. The Maya have a complex sense of what is beautiful, and they devote considerable effort to shaping their bodies and creating objects that embody their ideals. Physical beauty begins with the body itself. As we have seen, the sloping forehead created by cranial binding is considered attractive, a sign of civilization and nobility. The process begins in infancy. When a baby's skull is still soft, boards are bound to the front and back of the head, applying gentle but constant pressure that gradually reshapes the skull as it grows. By the time the child is several years old, the shape is permanent, the forehead sloping back at a dramatic angle. Eyes are also shaped. Mothers hang small beads or balls in front of their infants' eyes, encouraging the babies to focus on them, which over time creates a permanent cross-eyed condition that the Maya find attractive. Again, this is a mark of distinction, a way of showing that one's body has been intentionally shaped according to cultural ideals. Teeth are filed and modified. In adolescence, the front teeth are shaped, sometimes filed to points, sometimes filed flat and inlaid with small pieces of jade, pyrite, or hematite. A specialist performs this work, using small stone drills and files. The process is painful, but the result is striking, a permanent bodily adornment that displays wealth and status. When a noble speaks or smiles, the jade in their teeth catches the light, a subtle but unmistakable sign of their rank. Ears and noses are pierced for jewelry. The ear piercings are often stretched over time, large plugs or cylinders of jade or obsidian inserted to create dramatic ornaments. The septum is also pierced, allowing for nose ornaments that might be simple bars or elaborate pendants. The total effect, when combined with body paint and elaborate clothing, is striking, transforming the human body into a canvas for cultural expression. Body paint is used for various purposes. Warriors paint themselves before battle, red and black designs that invoke the gods of war and make the wearer look fierce and inhuman. Priests paint themselves blue before sacrifices, identifying with the sacred color. Common people use body paint for festivals and ceremonies, temporary adornment that allows even the poor to participate in the city's aesthetic culture. The paint is made from minerals and plant extracts, mixed with oil or fat to help it adhere to skin. It washes off but can last through a day's ceremonies. Tattooing is another form of permanent bodily modification. Unlike the tattoos of some other cultures, Maya tattoos are often achieved through scarification, cutting designs into the skin and allowing them to heal into raised patterns. Warriors display their battle exploits through tattoos, each capture or victory recorded on their bodies. The process is painful and carries risk of infection, but the result is a permanent record of achievement that cannot be taken away or lost. The ideal Maya body is not just modified, it is adorned. Jade is the most precious material, valued above all else. A single large jade bead might be worth more than a year's harvest from a farmer's field. The nobility wear jade in quantity, heavy necklaces, ear ornaments, wristlets, anklets, all carved from the hard green stone. The jade is not just valuable, it is sacred, associated with the breath of life, with water, with growing maize. To wear jade is to wear symbols of fertility and divine favor. Feathers are similarly precious. The long tail feathers of the quetzal bird, iridescent green and more than 2 feet long, are reserved for the highest nobility. A single quetzal feather is worth more than a jade bead. An entire headdress of quetzal feathers represents wealth beyond the imagining of common people. The quetzal lives only in cloud forests, in specific highland regions, and capturing the birds without killing them requires skill and patience. The feathers are traded across great distances, passing through many hands before reaching the cities where they will be incorporated into ceremonial regalia. Other feathers are also used. The scarlet macaw provides brilliant red feathers. The blue cotinga provides blue, hummingbird feathers. Tiny and iridescent, are used for more delicate work. Feather workers are specialists, artists who can create entire garments and headdresses from these materials, tying individual feathers to cotton backing, creating patterns and images that shimmer and move with the wearer. Pottery is another art form, highly developed in the Maya world. Ceramic vessels range from simple cooking pots to elaborate painted works that function as canvases for narrative and symbolic imagery. The finest pottery is created by specialists, potters who shape clay into thin-walled vessels of remarkable evenness and symmetry. The vessels are fired in kilns to a hard, durable finish, then painted with slips and pigments before being fired again. The painted decoration on elite pottery tells stories, records myths, displays the wealth and sophistication of the owner. A cylindrical vessel might show a scene from the Popol Vuh, the hero twins playing ball in Xibalba, the gods creating humanity. The figures are rendered with skill and detail, faces expressive, bodies in dynamic motion, clothing and regalia precisely depicted. Around the scene, hieroglyphic text identifies the characters, narrates the action, sometimes records the vessel's ownership and dedication. Such vessels are not simply containers. They are works of art, valued and collected, traded as diplomatic gifts between adjors. A finely painted vessel from this city might end up in a noble's tomb hundreds of miles away, buried as a grave good, evidence of the trade networks and cultural exchange that bind the Maya world together. Architecture is perhaps the most visible art form, the one that still dominates the landscape. The Great Pyramids are not simply functional structures, they are symbolic mountains, replicas of the sacred peaks where the gods dwell. Their steep stairs represent the difficulty of approaching the divine. Their temple crowns are cosmograms, maps of the universe in miniature. Every element has meaning, from the orientation to the cardinal directions to the specific architectural details that echo mythological and astronomical themes. The facades of temples and palaces are covered in sculptural decoration. Stucco is modeled into elaborate three-dimensional forms, gods and kings and mythological scenes that project from the walls in high relief. The stucco is painted in bright colors, creating a visual impact that would have been overwhelming. A temple facade is not a neutral surface. It is a statement, a proclamation of the building's function and the power of those who built it. Interior spaces are also considered. The vaulted ceilings of Maya buildings, created using the corbel arch technique where stone layers progressively overhang until they meet at the center, create a distinctive shape. The vaults are often decorated with painted murals, transforming the interior space into an immersive environment. To enter such a space is to enter a world of images and meanings, to be surrounded by the city's mythology and cosmology. All of this artistic production, all this pursuit of beauty and meaning, serves to reinforce the social and cosmic order. Beautiful things are not just pleasing to look at. They are evidence of divine favor, proof that the city is prosperous and its rulers are successful. The creation of art is an offering in itself, a way of honoring the gods by creating objects worthy of their attention. The finest pieces are offered directly to the gods, placed in temples or buried in caches beneath monuments, returned to the earth and the sacred realm from which all creativity ultimately derives. Music and dance are equally important, though they leave fewer traces for us to study. We know from depictions on pottery and in murals that the Maya had various instruments: drums made from hollow logs or ceramic, played with the hands or with sticks, rattles made from gourds filled with seeds, flutes and whistles made from clay or bone, trumpets made from conch shells. These instruments are played during ceremonies, creating soundscapes that enhance ritual performance. Dance is central to ceremony. The adjor dances, his movements precise and meaningful, each gesture carrying symbolic weight. Warriors dance before battle, invoking the gods and psyching themselves for combat. Priests dance to induce trance states, to commune with the supernatural. Common people dance during festivals, communal movements that bind the community together. Dance is not entertainment in the modern sense. It is communication, a bodily language that speaks to gods and humans alike. The aesthetic dimension of Maya life is not separate from the religious or political. It is integrated, part of a holistic worldview where beauty, power, and spiritual meaning are inseparable. To create something beautiful is to participate in the divine creative act, to bring order out of chaos, to contribute to the maintenance of cosmic harmony. This is why such effort and resources are devoted to art, why even in times of stress and difficulty, the cities continue to commission monuments, create pottery, weave textiles, pursue beauty with undiminished passion. And yet, as we have walked through this city, witnessed its daily life, seen its ceremonies and understood its systems, there have been subtle signs of strain, hints that the apparent stability and prosperity are not as secure as they seem. The fields are productive, but they are being pushed to their limits. The forests are being cut back further and further to create new agricultural land. The Swidden system requires more and more land as the population grows, and the available land is finite. The centroids and reservoirs that provide water are sufficient for now, but what if the rains fail? What if the dry season extends longer than expected? The city's dense population and intensive agriculture have created a situation where the margin for error is thin. A single bad harvest could mean hunger. 2 or 3 consecutive bad harvests could mean disaster. There are other signs as well, visible to those who know where to look. The nobility is growing, more and more people claiming elite status, demanding the privileges and resources that go with rank. The resources to support this expanding elite must come from somewhere, extracted from the productive classes, placing increasing burden on the farmers and craftspeople. The delicate balance between what the common people produce and what the elite consume is shifting, and not in a sustainable direction. Monument building continues at a frenzied pace, perhaps even accelerating. Each Ajor seeks to outdo his predecessors, to build larger pyramids, to commission more elaborate monuments, to demonstrate his power and piety through stone and plaster. But these projects require enormous amounts of labor drawn from agricultural production. Men building pyramids are not planting fields or weaving cloth or producing the goods that sustain daily life. The great monuments are impressive, but they are also costly, and the cost is borne by the common people who must work harder to support both themselves and the elite's ambitions. Warfare is becoming more frequent, more intense. Raids that once were occasional, ritualized affairs are now occurring more often. The diplomatic balance between cities seems to be fraying. Alliances are unstable. The competition for resources and status is driving cities into conflict. And war, even ritualized war, has real costs. Warriors killed or captured, fields trampled, resources diverted to military purposes. The cumulative effect of increased warfare is to destabilize the entire system. But these strains are not yet critical. The city continues to function. The ceremonies are performed. The harvests, while requiring ever more effort, still come in. The trade routes remain open. The gods still seem to favor the city. The sun still rises. The rain still falls. If you asked the people living through this time whether their civilization was approaching crisis, they would likely not understand the question. From within, everything seems normal. The challenges manageable. The future secure. This is perhaps the most poignant aspect of walking through this city at this moment in time. You can see what they cannot, can glimpse the ways in which success itself is creating the conditions for future difficulty. The very achievements that make this civilization remarkable, the dense cities, the intensive agriculture, the elaborate social hierarchies, the monumental architecture, are also its vulnerabilities. A system pushed to its limits becomes fragile, vulnerable to shocks that would be manageable under less stressed conditions. But that future is not yet here. For now the city thrives. The plaza fills each dawn with people making offerings and conducting business. The farmers tend their fields and hope for rain. The nobles compete for status and commission works of art. The priests climb the pyramids and track the stars. The scribes record it all, fixing these moments in hieroglyphic texts that will outlast the civilization that created them. The cycle continues, day after day, year after year, the great wheel of Maya time turning through its patterns, carrying this city and its people forward into an unknown future. As our time in this city draws to a close, as the light fades and the evening ceremonies begin once more, it is worth reflecting on what we have witnessed. The Maya achieved something extraordinary. In an environment that seems hostile to civilization, in rainforests where disease and decay are constant threats, where agriculture is difficult and stone for building must be quarried and transported without metal tools or wheeled vehicles, they created cities of stunning beauty and complexity. They developed a writing system, a mathematical system, astronomical knowledge that allowed them to predict celestial events with precision. They created art of remarkable sophistication. They built pyramids that still stand 1,000 years later, monuments to human ambition and ingenuity. But more than specific achievements, what is remarkable is the worldview that underlies it all, the way the Maya understood themselves and their place in the cosmos. They saw themselves as participants in a divine drama, their actions necessary to maintain the world itself. The rituals they performed were not empty gestures, they were essential work, as important as planting crops or building temples. The universe, in their understanding, required human cooperation, human sacrifice, human devotion. The gods created the world and sustained it, but they needed humanity's blood and prayers and offerings to continue their work. This worldview created a sense of meaning and purpose that permeated every aspect of life. Even the simplest activities, grinding corn or weaving cloth, were embedded in sacred narrative and cosmic significance. To live as a Maya in one of these cities was to live within a framework of story and ritual that connected you to the divine, to your ancestors, to the larger community, to the cycles of time that stretched back to creation and forward to the world's eventual end and renewal. It was not an easy life. The labor was hard, the heat oppressive, disease and violence constant threats. Social hierarchies were rigid in many ways, freedom constrained by obligation and tradition. But it was a life that made sense, that fit within a coherent understanding of how the world worked, that provided answers to the deepest questions about existence and meaning. The monuments the Maya left behind, the pyramids and temples and carved stelae, speak to their confidence and their ambition. They built for eternity, or what they understood as eternity, the recurring cycles of time. They recorded their histories in stone, ensuring their deeds would be remembered. They created beauty not for its own sake, but as an offering, a gift to the gods who made the world, and to the ancestors who built their civilization. And in many ways their ambition was fulfilled. The cities they built continue to draw people from around the world, visitors who stand in the plazas and climb the pyramids and marvel at the achievement. The hieroglyphic texts they carved have been deciphered, allowing us to read their stories in their own words. The astronomical knowledge they accumulated has been recognized as sophisticated and accurate. The art they created is displayed in museums, admired for its beauty and complexity. The Maya are not forgotten. Their civilization lives on in memory and in stone, in the descendants who still speak Maya languages and maintain aspects of traditional culture, in the scholars who dedicate their lives to understanding what was achieved in these jungle cities centuries ago. As you stand in the plaza one last time, as the sun sets and the first stars appear in the darkening sky, you can feel the presence of all those who stood here before you. The Ajors in their jade and feathers, performing their bloodletting rituals, the priests climbing the pyramids at dawn, the scribes recording history, the farmers coming to market, the children playing, the weavers and potters and jade carvers, creating objects of beauty and meaning. They are gone, their individual lives finished, but their collective achievement remains, encoded in stone and in the cultural traditions that never entirely disappeared, despite the great changes that were to come. The city around you is alive, vibrant, at the height of its power and sophistication. The challenges it faces are real but manageable. The future is unknown but not yet threatening. For now, there is only the present moment, the completion of another day's cycles, the preparation for another night's journey through the underworld, another dawn's renewal. The Maya cosmos continues its eternal dance, gods and humans bound together in reciprocal obligation, the world sustained through ritual and faith, and the endless turning of sacred time. And so our journey through this ancient city comes to a close. We have walked its causeways and climbed its pyramids. We have watched its ceremonies and understood its cosmology. We have seen how a civilization flourishes in seemingly impossible conditions, how human ingenuity and determination can create beauty and order out of chaos and difficulty. We have glimpsed a worldview fundamentally different from our own, yet recognizable in its concerns, its search for meaning, its attempt to make sense of existence and find humanity's proper place in the vast universe. The Maya civilization before the collapse was a marvel, a testament to what humans can achieve when they commit themselves to a shared vision, when they believe deeply in something larger than individual lives, when they create systems of meaning that connect the earthly and the divine. It was not perfect, no human civilization is, but it was remarkable, and the traces it left behind continue to inspire and instruct us, offering glimpses into a different way of being human, a different understanding of time and cosmos, and the relationship between humanity and the sacred. Thank you for walking with me through this world. Thank you for listening to these stories, for imagining yourself in this plaza at dawn, in these temples at dusk, in these fields and workshops and palaces. The archive of history is richer for your presence, and these ancient voices are heard again because you chose to listen. May the journey have been meaningful, and may the rest that follows be deep and peaceful. Until we meet again, in another time, in another place, sleep well and dream of distant civilizations and the eternal human quest to understand our place beneath the stars. And so our story fades into the darkness, but the echoes of this world remain, carved in stone, written in stars, alive in memory. Will rest now, and let these images and stories settle into your dreams. Good night.